Helps out when it comes to section playing. So whether you're playing in any of those type of ensembles, it really kind of hits home with working on balance and blend. And so we hope that you guys kind of get something out of this class on some of the things that we kind of talk about with ourselves and our students.
One of the biggest things that we work on when we meet, I think one of the most difficult part of us, playing together is that we have these gaps between rehearsals. So one of the first things that we kind of have to revisit every single time is matching and blending. And, articulations is probably one of our biggest, items of concern at the very beginning of our rehearsals. So, we kind of like to use some nice exercises, simple exercises that everybody could take home and use with your quartets or your ensembles. And one of the biggest things, like for us, we work in the Central Texas area, South Texas area. A lot of our students speak Spanish and English. They're bilingual students. So, the majority of our students have some issues with maybe a language, articulation of carrying that over to our instruments, maybe tonguing a little harder with the D syllables. And it could be with any other language. It could affect the articulations, and that's something that we kind of use with some of our students and really refining articulation. So for us, one of the exercises that we like to do is just simple 60th notes, a few sets of 60 notes. So we'll each kind of play our individual style and interpretation, and then it's up to us to kind of really match and get that intonation and get those style, articulations going. So we're going to demonstrate just a quick one that we like to use, and this is probably on our to-do list every single time. So it's a surprise what we're going to choose.
I'll demonstrate the style that we're going to do, and then we'll all kind of match throughout a scale and see if it works. All right, let's go. So, F. If we're not happy with that certain run of it, we'll do it again, and we'll kind of pass on the responsibility to somebody else. And in this case, Mar will take this next one, and we'll just have to adapt to what he chooses. On, and we could also vary, the subdivisions of the rhythm, and based on sometimes we were working on the bourgeois concerto, and with that piece, we like to go from 16ths to maybe triplet figures and really match across the ensemble the articulation we're using. And for us, that's a really big thing for us, to be able to match style and adapt to different pieces that we play.
Now the second small concept that we deal with is dynamics. Playing in a chamber ensemble allows for more and greater range of extreme dynamics. For example, the smaller environment, it provides an opportunity to play at the verge of niente all the way up to red line, and that's not very common, as we know, playing in a wind ensemble. If we see fortissimo, we're often given the hand. However, in this case, we can do whatever we want as long as we agree. And it's actually a lot of fun too. One of the exercises that we like to perform, it can be done on any scale degree. It can be done on any example. Oh, as a matter of fact, too, we will have a uploaded copy of an outline for this. So if you're curious about any of these exercises, you can go to, m4tq.com. After this one more time, m4tq.com, and you'll be able to find these examples on there. Nevertheless, so what we'll do is we're going to play the beginning of the Quartet, And we'll start out with a piano, and then we'll do, how about a forte, and then a red line. Now, one thing that you need to be careful of, or you need to investigate and establish all dynamic levels for everybody. We can think outside the box, so sometimes I know before I went to the University of Texas at Austin with Dr. Nathaniel Bricken sitting in the back over there, props to him. One thing that I really learned from the trombone choir, and I'm grateful and sitting next to these guys, is that ensemble plays really, really soft. And, I felt like I was playing pianissimo, and, Dr. Bricken's very gently like, can you play a little bit quieter? Yes, sir, we're going to try and do that. So we've established that. And don't be afraid to experiment beyond what you think is your limit. It's important to note that individual levels are going to differ from ensemble player to ensemble player, or individual to individual. For example, Ray, he definitely has to play in a smaller box than myself because he marched Blue Devils back in the day. And so my box is larger. Ray, when he sees it, oftentimes we listen back to the record and we're like, Ray, you're a little bit too loud, man. Sorry, we fix it. We go back and fix it. But nevertheless, so this is that example. We will play piano, forte, and then kind of like a red line pushing it. So that's just one example for dynamics. Another small ensemble point we like to focus on is intonation. And I think, Mark, you want to explain this one?
Yeah, actually, before we go to intonation, going back to how this applies to like the orchestra or the jazz band, I'd say you definitely want to have like the soft playing under control, and that's why it's good to do this in this context, because like I've seen like orchestral pieces where they're asking for 5 Ps, and I've seen people like get asked to not come back because they can't play super soft. So it's just good to have it and to not have it. So with intonation, that's a major thing, and which is different from the band section is we're all one and apart within the quartet, and so it's not that easy to hide in small numbers, and so that's a great thing when we can work on tuning together. And not necessarily because I'm the bass trombone player do I have the root all the time. So sometimes I have to listen up because Oscar might have the root. But we have different exercises that we work on with this too when we're focusing on sound and intonation. So we basically start off in a major chord. Then whoever has the third, they'll lower it. So then we focus on the minor chord. Then whoever has the fifth, they lower that. And then we go into a diminished chord. And the root actually has to adjust too, because the function is different. So we always ask each other, all right, do you have the root? Who has what? We're asking each other. This is where we have to get our theory in check. Like who has what? So if you're still taking theory, make sure you take that very seriously. But yeah, all those things are important. And we'll talk about the roles later. But we're going to just demonstrate our exercise, and we're going to start with a B-flat major chord. And Ray and I will be in octaves, and Oscar will be on the fifth. Now, Ray is actually going to be higher than part 2, but we find a lot of times in the quartet music, usually the third and fourth are usually in octaves anyway, and so that's the way we're doing it. But you can change it up. I mean, I don't necessarily have to have the root all the time, and I've really challenged bass trombone players to look elsewhere, try to play the fifth or the third, because I think sometimes we always have our ear on the root, and then we have to play something else, like we're out of whack. So I think it's very important. So, let's try this? Sure, yes, sir. we do this with our students too, within trombone choirs and whatnot. I think another great way to work on intonation, we do this every time that we get together, and I know we do this with our own trombone choirs too, is getting chorales is the best way to work on intonation, and because it's being split around, and tonally it's really easy to hear, like, you know, who's out of tune and who has like the major chord or whatnot.
All right, my turn to talk. So, one of the most important elements, I think in my opinion, and I think we've all collectively agree, is rhythm and time. Because if you don't have good rhythm and good time, basically everything else just kind of cancels out. You know, nothing lines up. So, you know, you have a good sound, that's great. You can play in tune, great. But if it never lines up, it doesn't matter. So you have to have really good rhythm and time. So I know one of the things that we love to do, well, we don't love to do it, but we have to do it, is we play with a metronome, right? I think a metronome always keeps you honest and everything. You know, I tell my students, play with a metronome. Did you practice with a metronome? Yeah, I did once. I'm like, yeah, I know. But again, you know, and so I always have a met. I tell them, you have to practice with a metronome. That's just, like I said, it just keeps you honest. And I know it keeps us honest. We really have to focus because, you know, sometimes maybe our big beats are aligned, but not our little beats, you know, our subdivisions and things. So that's kind of one of the things that we like to do. So one of the exercises that we like to do is we'll set our metronome. So if I were to set my met, as you can tell. So we're going to do something. Usually what we do. You can tell we love each other. So what we like to do is we'll have this met going. All right, I'll be holding this, and these guys will play while I hold this, and they're gonna count the half. All right, and then we'll go down and we'll do the
Half that subdivision.
half that subdivision, which is 60 of 120, and they'll do it again.
Sure, please.
Okay, now we're gonna do one more. We're gonna go half of that, which is
30.
30. I don't have that math. You got it?
Yeah.
It's hard. And then we can go even more and do 15, but yeah.
We're not going to do that today.
We ain't doing that. So yeah, so you can tell, it's very easy to be off just by the little beat. So time is super important. Let's see. So yeah, now we're going to discuss another element, basically the role of an individual. My role, Martin's role, everybody's role. Like he had mentioned earlier, we all have our roles in knowing whether or not we have a counter melody, whether like in chords, tuning as well. Martin said that he sometimes has the root, but sometimes he has a third. Sometimes I have it, sometimes I have the root. It just depends. But it's very crucial for us to know where we're at. Like I know for myself, when Javier has the melody, it might just be me and him doing something, and I know exactly where I'm supposed to be at when I'm playing with him. If he gets softer, well then I get softer. If he gets louder, I get louder. It's just something, and it doesn't always happen all the time. We have to really be listening and really be sensitive to each other's playing, and we have a very nice relationship when that happens. So, Martin, you want to use this?
Yeah, that's a great point. Like this piece that we're playing on Saturday night, We definitely have to listen across the board. There's some moments where Ray and I have a lot of stuff together. It's like we'll bring those out. Like we're kind of broken up in a duet. So Ray and I and Oscar and Javier. Or there's some times where Oscar and I are in octave. So even though he's 2 people away from me, I have to really listen out for those type of things too. But in our rehearsals, we're always asking these questions. It's really important to ask these questions, like who has the melody, who has the counter melody, what do we need to bring out? One of the things, and this is kind of back to the intonation issue too, if the balance is usually off, if someone who doesn't have the melody is playing too loud, then the intonation is going to be out of whack. And so it's really important to kind of hone in and have dialogue on who's having what within the ensemble.
So that's essentially the exercise that we do, and we have that on PF2s. You know, discuss verbally on who has what parts. I mean, even what was that? Yesterday, 2 days ago, we found something new that we had unison A's. Oh, yeah, on this as the next piece. Nevertheless, the last point that we're going to touch upon today is sight reading. Now, I found that throughout my teaching career, ensembles don't really sight read in a certain way. For example, one thing that will happen is that when you sight read, a lot of the times you go through, and if you make a mistake, what happens? Some people, well, that's what we want to happen, but in general, some people will stop, right? You'll make the mistake, stop, go back. But it's important as an ensemble to keep on going and realize the music is just continuing on in time. Therefore, what we'll do is we'll read a piece, we'll go all the way through it the first time, discuss where these mistakes were. You know, that's okay, because it's all a part of learning and growing. Second time, read it through, it should be a little bit better. Third time, we'll do it about 3 times, and after that, it's not really sight reading to me, because then you've kind of learned the piece. One thing that's important about sight reading is the role lies solely on the individuals, but assistance can be provided through cues from other members. For example, if you get to a big letter B or something, we'll give verbal cues, and I think verbal cues and communication are extremely important in a chamber setting. One exercise that we do on top of sight reading to help with these and assist with the verbal cues is actually cueing the ensemble. We'll do that through nonverbal communication, whether it's a moving through the horn and giving a downbeat, or also including the breath. So the example that we're going to do right now is each one of us is going to take time and cue the ensemble on a unison B flat. Right? It can be whatever you want. It can be the beginning of a piece. For right now, we're just going to do B flat. And what I found in this ensemble is that where I feel like I'm placing the beat is not actually what they're feeling, or it's maybe it's not what I'm giving. So I'll give it, and if it's not the same exact time, I'll discuss, hey, was I early, or what do you guys think about that? Nevertheless, here is our example of giving cues. But to make it a little bit more difficult, what we've learned is that you can go directly off the breath. So what we're going to attempt right now is an exercise. We used to do this a lot. We've done it a couple times. Is you can take the ensemble, have everybody either close their eyes for the purpose of this, so nobody's cheating. We're going to face different directions, and we're just going to go off of our breath and play together. All right? All right. You can't face the same direction. All right. You guys ready? Yeah, but that's just one thing. You can really increase communication like that. So later on, when you're playing the piece and you are sight reading, or you just want to actually non-verbally communicate, that helps. And I found that sometimes, for example, Oscar doesn't know I'm telling him, but if Oscar feels like we're dragging, he has his little bouncing motion that he does, and that helps me know, we've got to speed up. So
that we were talking about with that when we were in school, because I guess individually in our undergraduate programs, we didn't really have like this type of chamber music component. Like we actually had to get together for a class just to fulfill a degree plan. But then we just loved playing with each other, and we said, you know, we should try to keep this going on after we graduate.
Mark, from the get-go in the studio, became real close friends. And then, like you said, we kind of played a trombone part together, played similar parts. We were on first, and yeah, just kind of took our friendship kind of went from there, and now we're kind of best of friends, and had no problem telling somebody else, you know. Let me say this real quick: is that we leave our egos outside the door, and that's really important in chamber ensemble too. It's not really a small concept setting, but you know, far too often I've been in a setting where it's like you have to be in a brass quintet, and let's say the trumpet player is making a mistake, because they often do that, you know, or whatever. But you don't want to say anything, you know, because they're prima donnas. I mean, that's my personal opinion, you know, nevertheless. But, you know, you have to kind of leave your ego out the door. And it's like, okay, we all have the same goal, and we all want to be good. And in this, you know, setting, Oscar is not afraid to tell me, like, hey, man, your tonguing is, you know, it's too jazzy, because I play a lot of commercial music, you know, we need more front or whatever, or if we're rushing or if we're coming in the wrong time. You know, the ego's left out the door, we're all completely honest, and that way we're able to move forward as well and have fun doing it, you know. So it's not a sign of disrespect, it's just we want it to be good. Hey, no offense taken, because I'm not attacking your character, we just want the music to be the best that it can be.
That's very important too, and actually that's one of the big things why a lot of great groups kind of disband, just because of egos. Other reasons why groups disband, it's just, we talked about the role of the individual as far as like playing, like who is the melody and whatnot, but also like if you want to travel, you know, we said like after school we would like to start doing university residencies, doing stuff like this, and not one person can do all the work, like do the website or book the tours, or book, you know, take care of the money. And so each one of us has a different role in the quartet, which makes things a lot smoother.
Well, these 6 points, it's obvious that these can transfer over to large ensemble stuff, and that's the purpose. But in a small chamber setting, whether it's a quintet or whether it's a quartet, you know, one of our favorite chamber settings, we honestly believe that nonverbal communication is highly important, because, I mean, you'll see it sometimes too, where student groups, they're about to go, and then as soon as like, all right, you guys ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. You know, like that's not necessary. Just move, talk, whatever. I mean, if you have a little sign and that's what it is, then that's what it is. You know, it may look weird, but you know, whatever you do, if people know what you're doing, no problem.
Yeah. That's the awesome freedom about chamber music, because we have no conductor. We are our conductors, and so not all the time, since Javier, if he's playing the lead part, he's starting. A lot of times I have to start it, right? So
I know a lot of it relies on the individual player. I mean, just getting, you know, individual stuff. But yeah, I mean, some of the things that we had done earlier, we have to match. Like it's just a collaboration. Like, you know, he had mentioned that I yell at him for.
You know, yeah. You just let me know.
I just let him know about articulation and stuff. Sometimes he tongues a little bit, things a lot softer or a lot, you know, lighter on the do tongue, and we just show him, this is how I think it should be. I'm like, is that right? Do you like that, guys? Yeah. Okay. Is it good? Okay. And then boom. Because sometimes there's another thing that we sometimes don't. Like as a student, when I was a student, we still learn this concept. Is when we play, we hear ourselves on this side of the horn, and as you're learning and you're growing, it sounds different on this side of the horn. So that brings you back to maybe another concept is recording yourself all the time. So yeah, I know, and everybody's like, yeah, you guys record yourself. You're like, oh man. And you listen to yourself. You're like, it's either oh man or oh man, I sound better than I thought I did. It happens. So that's another thing how we kind of evaluate what we do, and the breathing. I mean, we never really do much breathing exercises. For us, that's just one of those individual things that we do when we practice individually. So, hope that answers some of your question.
Yeah, we really do take back, you know, what we get as far as feedback from recordings or so. It's like just a few days ago at our rehearsal, we were sent a Dropbox link for our rehearsal recording, and we listened back and we're like, wow, I can't believe I was doing this playing too loud or I mean, I don't know, too soft, and you know, we're all pretty good about listening back and, you know, being critical about what we're doing and being positive. And I think, you know, that's key, being positive and listening back. A lot of times we don't listen back, we don't take that time, and I think 50% of the battle of improving is, yes, practicing, but the other 50% of improving is listening to yourselves, really analyzing what we're doing. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what we'd like to do now is we'll take a little bit more questions. We'd like to bring up a fantastic group who stepped in at the last minute. We're going to listen to them, give constructive criticism. We'll probably have a couple more questions later, yeah?
Yeah.
So, you want to introduce them?
Yeah.
So
to kind of talk about some of the points that we were discussing and what we try to work on matching, I would say articulation is the big thing here. Like, what period did Haydn come from? Did he come from like the 18th century music, the 19th century music? You guys know? Not Baroque, but more the classical, right? So, and that's the good thing about playing different types of music. You know, either something from the Baroque, which especially that's like the history of our trombone choir, Renaissance music, or something as like the bourgeois. But with here, like the articulation is a little bit lighter. It's not as heavy as we would play like Mahler or Bruckner, right? And so I would work on just an exercise. I mean, you don't have to do the A-flat arpeggio up front, but just kind of lock in how you want to play the 16th notes. All right, but that's just the way that I'm going to do it, you know. But since you guys are a group, you kind of figure out who wants to take the lead there, and how would you like to play it, Devin?
I agree. A little lighter, more articulate on the 16th note.
Okay, you guys want to try that? Let's just try it on A flat. Always like keep it simple. Yeah, I'm gonna do the whole bar. All right, so we're already getting somewhere where we're matching articulations. Then you can add like the actual notes too. All right, and then other places where like the counter melody, ba beep ba ba da. There's a slur marking there, right? I know there's a lot of different editions. This is the David Miller edition. Ba beep beep beep. Yeah, so beat 3 and 4 is slurred. I feel like we could agree on how we want to do that. We're going to bring out the slur on beat 3 and 4, so you can work on different exercises for that too. Oscar, you have some things?
Yeah, it's a couple of things that will help. I know when I have my students, sometimes I don't even touch the horn. I say, okay guys, we're not going to touch the horn. I do two things. We do air articulation, or we do it on the mouthpiece. I know there's that argument, to buzz or not to buzz. My thing is, if it works for you, do it. If it doesn't, don't do it. I mean, it's simple. There's a lot of different ways to do something, but I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole other master class. But what I like to do, they do this exercise, okay? Just like what Martin said at the beginning. Do the measure, and all I want you to do is just go. If your style is, Bevan said it needs to be lighter. You say lighter, a little more bouncy, right? So we'll go. Right? Instead of. It's different. You want to create that compression as well to create the front of the note. Okay, I'll do it again, demonstrate, and you guys try it. And then I want you to play it on the horn. See if that works. So just with air, Devin, you can do the cue, and they'll follow you. All right, so listen. So you hear different articulations, right? You hear different. So again, this is actually one of the things I know with the students is sometimes we use too much tongue and not enough air to propel certain things. So let's try that again. Now this time I'll cue it. All right? Go do this. Right? Do with me. Again, 2, 3. And you want to kind of make your embouchure and just kind of pretend you have it. Again, 2, 3. Now try it on your horn. Just one note. Keep it simple. Right? Ready? 2, 3. Okay? Do it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay? Now, of course, you can hear a lot of different things. People are playing different octaves, right? Bevan, you playing low A flat? Are you guys playing low A flat or A flat in the regular A flat, right? Okay, so that's an exercise that has, you have, of course, less compression. You guys have a little bit more, right? So that's an exercise. And then balance, of course, that's a whole other issue. Martin, you want to add some more?
Yeah. So yeah, the articulation that was really that's 100 times better. What do you guys think? Yeah. So that's kudos to that. So that's like your first step. The next thing, dynamic contrast too. Like I like what you guys did. It's pretty common performance practice before measure 1 to bring it down, right? Did you guys discuss what your dynamic is? Because it didn't seem like I see in your part it says mezzo piano, but it seemed like we're kind of going for a pianissimo. You guys ever talked about that?
We wanted to bring it down a good amount, more less than a mezzo piano.
Okay, so do you guys work on different dynamic exercises too within your group whenever you guys meet?
A little bit. We don't do it too much, but we probably should do it more.
Okay. So those that's where you can talk about what we're going to do as far as a group, because it's going to be very different from playing in the section or even being a soloist too, as far as your dynamics concerned. So just kind of making sure that you're not sticking out. Not that you were when you guys are playing your soft dynamics, but you want to have core to your soft dynamics too. That's why it's good to focus on that as a group.
Another thing with balance, I love to, I guess, compare things to food when I teach. I mean, most definitely a hamburger, right? Just because does balance. If you know, if you listen to certain things, sometimes there's way too much bread in your burger. Or there's way too much something. Now, I like a lot of meat in my burger personally, but which goes to my third trombone and second trombone. These are the double meat in the burger. And you can't have a, I guess in my opinion, a great burger without good beef or whatever. So these guys almost have to be just a hair louder than these two guys, just a little bit to get some more meat in the core and the sound. You know, and so that's one of the things. Think of Whataburger. We're from Texas, so we double meat with bacon and all that good stuff. So that's what I want you guys to kind of think of, especially when you have your lines, right? Because I heard you very predominantly. I heard you very predominantly, but you two guys, you know, we just kind of bring it up just a hair, you know. And that's what I think. So I don't know, like when you guys broke into, let's see, where was it where it gets kind of different? Why don't we start at 1? Just 1 to 2. Okay, 1 to 2. Okay, yeah, go for it. You count it off. You started right there.
Yes, sir.
All right, go for it. Different styles and balance. You can play out just a little bit more. I know sometimes we don't play what it says on the page, but sometimes you have to play what the quartet is doing. You know, you have to change it a little bit. You know, dynamics, they're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
Subjective. Yeah, that's very subjective.
Yeah, subjective. Like, you know, Ray's forte's here. Sorry, Ray. So we have to, like, figure it out.
Can we actually have them do that exercise, the dynamic exercise? Sure. That was something I was going to mention because when I was listening, I did hear. So when I was listening to the quartet, I heard, I was standing right there in the back, but even when you were facing this way, I heard a lot of flirts, right? I mean, maybe that was just me. And possibly your box is different than everyone else's. Now, I don't know if you guys have done this before, but let's just, you know, play. What's the part where you guys go into like a nice chord? Yeah. Yeah, let's do the, you guys see beat 3 of the penultimate measure? The measure before the last. Right? Yeah, so let's work on that. I want to see as soft as you can possibly play that chord. Alright, so we'll decide who cues it. It doesn't matter who cues it, right? But let's play that beat 3 as soft as you can play, but still making a sound. Okay, did you attack together? No, alright, so let's try it again. Together? No? Alright, so what's happening? Talk amongst each other. What's going on? Is somebody early? Is somebody late? This is the dialogue that you have to have, right? Leave the egos out. It's okay. Who was first? Are they responding to how you feel like you're giving the beat? No? Okay, so...
I think we are a little bit later. Yeah.
Then how he feels it, right? Okay, so you can either wait a little bit, right? Or, you know, or you can go quicker. Whatever. But this is just a dialogue that has to happen. Alright, so it's slightly better. And that's one exercise that you guys can work on. But let's work on dynamics. Let's do a forte right now. So a group forte. Alright, you guys comfortable with that? Yeah? Alright, now let's think way outside the box. Let's say you had a brother who made you really upset, and instead of punching him, you just put your trombone to his ear and play really loud. Don't really do that, but you know. So the extreme forcing, I'm thinking of my sons right now. One's 6 and one's 2, and the other one, you know, he's just wailing away. But nevertheless, let's think outside the box. I want you guys to redline it, give it as much as you've got, but still stay in ensemble context. How do you feel about that?
Let me ask this. Do you guys know who has what in the chord?
Yes, he has the third. I have the fifth. But it has a
Because
Yeah, you got to know that. You have to know that all the time. Necessary, you can use your ears, right? Play that chord again, and listen. This time, really listen to just locking that major chord in. Yeah, so you were adjusting, right? You heard it, so you need to go a little bit lower. You know, a lot of the times, you know, I know with my students, I always tell them, guys, you're hearing things sharp. So when they actually tune it and they're in tune, to their ears, it sounds flat. You know, of course, I mean, he's lowering it, so it is flat. But theoretically, like that, you have, what is it? What is it? The C? And be careful with that. The C is always the ugly note. Do it one more time. Okay? That's how picky you have to be, especially in this one, because there's so many major chords in there, right? A lot of major chords, so you guys have to know who has what. You have to adjust. Sometimes it's inverted. Sometimes something's happening. You know, but you guys are good.
sorry, I want to add one thing. You know, our setup real quick. Every single time you guys played something, there was very minimal eye contact amongst each other. All right, so let's just try something. Now, can everybody see each other? You guys see each other better? We start at the very top. And then the last thing, you know, this is one of the things that, these are my boys, that one of the things that we run into is that there's this imaginary, you know, barrier right here between the audience and us that exists. Like, oh no, they're going to count every note that I get wrong. If I'm not raising my fifth partial, they're going to criticize me. Well, not really. They're just wanting to listen. And one of the biggest things that I tell performers is that you have to look like you're having fun. You have to smile. All these guys right now, they look like, oh boy, I don't want to. And these guys have to look like they're having fun. So you have to smile. I know it sounds cheesy, but you have to prove and you have to show that you're having fun, because the audience is going to feed off of your expression. You know, and if you guys just could convey that a little better. You guys are all good friends. You guys are all good players. Let's try that from the very top one more time. Communication.
Whataburger.
All right, nice and full sound effects. Ready? Good. So was that as big of a breath you wanted to give these guys? All right, well, let's try it again. My opinion, I think communication was a little better. You could see each other better. I think, you know, you sounded much more comfortable. And, you know, in a performance setting, how many opportunities do we have? One, right? And we're kind of judged for that. So, you know, have fun, guys. When you're doing that, yes, you know, we put you kind of, I know I put you guys in, you know, in a little fire right now, but it's all right. You guys did fine, and, you know, enjoy it. Enjoy it, you know. So, do you guys have anything that you all want to add to this?
One thing when you're talking about the formation, we also, just so we can hear each other better, we'll do the box formation too, where we're facing each other. We'll just do, I mean, when we perform, we like the tight formation, and that's why we like to perform with iPads, because they can be really close and it's really easy for us to hear. But we never perform like in the box formation, but it is a good way to listen. So you can change it up too.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. As we stated earlier, we're some of the best of friends, and we don't all live in Austin anymore. And this is something that, you know, a lot of chamber ensembles they deal with, is that, okay, well, how are you going to maximize your efficiency when you're away? Of course, obviously, personal practice time, right? That's one thing you have to be big on. But then when you get together, it has to be structured. As Martin said, roles. One of my roles is to manage the group. For example, well, when I say manage, you know what I'm saying. Like, I keep it, okay, because we're best of friends. So I'll schedule a 2-hour rehearsal, you know, then we'll go out to eat. That's really important because Oscar likes to eat meat. Obviously, like he said, he cooks brisket all the time, so we have that. But also, in that time, I have kind of an outline in my head. They don't know that. But let's say, okay, we're working on a recital, and we're going to spend 22 minutes I want to spend actually 22 minutes on that piece, whatever the piece may be. Well, in my timeline, I schedule about 34 because we're going to stop and we're going to say, hey, by the way, man, my kid just won a soccer game, you know, and they're like, oh, that's great, man, Jason's in soccer too. And then finally, you know, we get too off and like, all right, guys, you know, time to get back on it. So we do work on that stuff, but it has to be kind of structured. However, my structure, and we're not all the way 100% about business every single time, right? There's a time and a place for everything, and we feel like camaraderie is very big in an ensemble too. That's how you kind of stay together. You want to add upon that?
You guys usually talk a lot, and then we get to look for Martin, and it's time to go.
Yeah. Well, you know, sometimes whenever we go out to dinner and stuff, we discuss certain things like logistics, like maybe tour stuff, or what we're going to do here, what we're going to do for certain master classes. And you know, we use our technology a lot to kind of, you know, we shoot stuff to people. We have you know, on our iPhones, we have our group thread. You know, we talk about it, or you know, I mean, that's how we communicate. It's now, I mean, that's the way the future is, and so that's how we're always. There's sometimes where we don't see each other for a while, but when we get together, it's like we saw each other yesterday. You know, that's how it is, and that's so important in a group. It's like you said, is camaraderie. You know, we get along with each other. It's just, you know, it's like brothers from another mother. You know, in a way, that's how it works. We were fortunate enough to get picked up by Michael Rath trombones. You know, we all had played when we started. We played different instruments, and of course, creating that blend was a little bit difficult. And you know, we had to listen a lot, and it's different. But once we did get our instruments, it did make things a little easier. Of course, we all have different setups. You know, we don't have the same mouthpieces. We have different mouthpiece brands and stuff. But it does help. It does help. Yeah, we actually what do we play? The APON. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the APON Trombone Quartet. I see. I usually play. I play first. He plays second. And the second's higher. Yeah, we give him all the high stuff. We don't deal with that. And we and him have the same stuff, third and first part. So I'm sitting here. I'm with him, and he's here. You know. So yeah, it just depends on the tune. We look at the tune. If you know, if my part has a lot of stuff with Martin, then I'll switch with him. You know, I mean, it's just four of us. I mean, it's not like we're, you know, all the way in. So, yeah, I mean, it changes with your setting and what part you're playing next to. And plus, it also helps, you know, sometimes we get close to each other when we're playing a duet, you know, or something, you know. Visually, too, it looks kind of nice, you know, so.
Well, also, some of the arrangements, like personal arrangements that we have, it's not really first, second, third, and fourth. It says Javier, Oscar, Ray, and Martin, and I'll write to our strengths. So sometimes, you know, I'll put upper stuff on my part, yeah, or I'll put the really extreme fast stuff with Ray, you know, and it'll alternate. So it's not really, oh, I always have the high stuff because he might be having the melody, or he might have the melody, you know, and so on and so forth. So we'll be interactive and change that way as well.
Our part, like when I know what we're playing, I listen to the recordings. I use a lot of ear to listen and to know what's going on in their parts. Sometimes I even play with the recordings. That helps me out. Just when they're not around, I want to play with something, you know, because practicing a quartet part can be kind of boring.
Practicing alone is always boring. We
Well,
can only play one note at a time.
True. So if you
We
play,
can't harmonize with ourselves.
So if we, you know, we play with the quartet, you know, I mean, it's not the quartet that I'm playing with, but it's a quartet. I know where my part fits in because rehearsals are not for learning your part; they're for learning kind of their part a little bit too, you know. And so I think that helps.